Once upon a time, there was a very, very, very rich man. And he lived in a city by the ocean. He was getting on in years, and he had tried in many times, many ways, to make something of his life, make some kind of legacy. When he had first struck it rich, he tried to do that by making large financial contributions to the small settlement that he lived in, for that's all it was at the time, not yet a city. In fact, it became a city in large part through those financial contributions. He built marketplaces, theaters, schools, even a large cathedral right in the center of town. And that felt all right. It felt good to know he had made his mark on the place he lived. But it didn't seem to fill that void. As he got on in years, he started a family. And he thought, well, maybe this is how I make my legacy. Maybe this is how I leave my mark on the world. He had 3 children, and he did his best to raise them right. But unfortunately, each of them disappointed him in their different ways. One, who, despite the rich man's best attempts to avoid this, was utterly spoiled by the luxury he grew up in, and grew to be lazy and feckless. The next was angry, feeling like everything in the world was either denied to him or came too easily. He struggled with much the same sense of purposelessness and emptiness as his father. But since his father had already provided the model of greeting that challenge with open arms, due to the nature of youthful rebellion, the second son took a different approach, revolting angrily and thrusting away all attempts at help and kindness. Until finally, after one grand, fiery declaration in which he rebuked his father and his mother and this whole city, he left the city, never to be seen again. And the third child, his only daughter, grew up with a nobility to her, and seemed perhaps to finally be the rich man's chance at finding something he could really be proud of in his life. But sadly, this nobility took hold of the girl. She felt honor-bound to live up to the legacy of her parents and her family and their money and their status. And she threw herself into service, but not out of the goodness of her heart, but just simply because she felt like she needed to. And one day, searching for more and more dramatic ways to be of service, she joined the army to fight in the Great War beyond the coast. And the next time they saw her is when her corpse washed up on the beach. She had been killed at sea in a naval battle. Hers was one of the only bodies that managed to wash up, the others having sunk down below with the fish. Nearing the end of his life, the rich man truly did not know what was left to him. If there had been a book of how to leave a legacy, he would have gone through every chapter, ticked every box, attempted every category. And still nothing. It was as if this need to leave something behind had become a curse, a cage behind which his heart sat and wasted away, chains that held him down, preventing him from grasping the joy he so desperately craved, a collar around his neck that choked the life's breath out of him. And one night, the old rich man stood outside of his large house, up on a scenic promontory overlooking the rest of the city. And he looked at the stars, and he looked at the coast, and he looked at the city. And he did see the good that he had done. There were people down below benefiting from the institutions he had built and funded. The war beyond the coast had been won, and although his daughter had not survived, she had helped to protect their country and their city. Wherever their angry son was now, he had instilled him with some kind of passion, and he could hope that perhaps, with time, the violence of that fire in him would mellow, and his second son would find some kind of peace. And even his lazy layabout son was happy. And he was not cruel. He was just lazy. And really, that wasn't the worst thing in the world to be. And looking out onto everything and thinking on his life, he realized that even with all the pain and disappointment and loss, he hadn't failed at all. He had left so much behind. He had left behind a legacy that was complicated and strange and painful and joyous and adventurous and dangerous and charitable and human. And he thought to himself, what more could I ask for? And the next morning, his wife, having awoken to find the rest of the bed empty, went outside to see if she could find her husband. And there he was, sitting under a shady tree, facing the city and the coast and the sky, with a smile on his face. And that is where they buried him.